Hello and welcome to the Group 9 Sprint 1 demonstration video. Today I'm going to show you the code that was completed during our first sprint of the project. First up, we have the Grid GUI class, which at the moment currently creates a Grid GUI and a Menu GUI, puts them into a frame, and displays it for the user. Along with that, whenever the grid is created, it colors the buttons in the grid. This will be used later to show which plots a player owns. So if I go ahead in main, there is a grid GUI created with a grid size passed in of 10. If I were to run this main class, it should pop up a window that has grids here. You can see the menu panel on the side, and if I were to click a button, it will pop up the coordinate of that button in the grid, and it goes to 10 by 10, which is the specified size in the main. If you look here, you can see coordinates for the color changing buttons, and it'll go through and check if they are in the range of the grid size and color the buttons. Right now we just have it set to a default of green and red, or a green background with a red border. So that's what these buttons are here. And then the default buttons that are not owned technically by anybody are gray, light gray with a black border. So this is what we have so far for our menu GUI, button functionality, grid layout. I can go ahead and show here. If I were to change this to, let's just say like a 5, and then go ahead and run this again, it will change the grid size to 5 instead of 10, and this still works. So that is our current GUI. It will be expanded a lot in future sprints, but for now that is what we have. Up next is, go ahead and close these so I don't get confused. Up next we have our database connections. So past the grid, the basic GUI setup, the other biggest thing that we worked on this sprint is our database and a connection to it. So on the Amazon AWS, I believe is what it's called, we were able to set up a MySQL server, and through that we were able to create tables hosted online so that anybody who runs this project can share information across devices. So in real world application here, you would be able to see live feed updates and everything according to what's stored in the database across all systems. But for now, we have login information. This is just a main that we were using to test the class before we created the tests. Has the method to connect, close connection to the database. It has a connection, or it has a function to create a player class using information gathered from the database. So whenever you call the getPlayer class, you give it a ID for the user you would like to, get, and this method will return a player with the information obtained from the database of that player. And similarly with question, you insert the question ID and it will return a question object. Our database you can see here. We currently have 4 tables. Only 2 of them are being used at the moment, which is player and question. But I can go ahead and run these, and you can see at the moment we just have a random test question so that we can use these whenever we run our tests, and a test player, which this one is specifically. We also have a second player, but that was just for something different. So yeah, this is our databases at the moment. We also have one for game info and login info, but these will be used later on. So if we were to run this, you can see connected to database, outputs the color, which is an RGB object. I think it's built into Java. Then it outputs the question answer, which I believe the answer to that specific question is 11, and then closes the database connection. So that is our connection. Here is the tests, which is similar to what was run in the main. If I go ahead and run these, both of these pass and a pass. I also just now realized I did not go through the grid GUI test, but for our grid GUI, we have a test for the get size and the color creation. If we go ahead and run these, both of these pass as well. So past those two big points, we also created classes, of course, that will be used to store information from the database for easier access in our program. Instead of calling to the database every time we need something, we thought it would be easier just to make an object. So if we need a list of players, we can just make an array of player objects and fill them in with all the information from the database. So this just holds username, correct answers, wrong answers, first name, last name. We're still deciding on if we need these, but they're still here for now. And then the colors for the background and the outline. And then constructor, and then most of the setters and getters. And then we have a tester for that, which tests the username, background color, outline color, and then adding correct answers and adding wrong answers, just making sure everything works right. This tests add, deduct, and then this tests add as well. So if we go ahead and run player tests, all 5 tests pass, no problems. And then finally, similar to the player class, we have the Java class, which is very much the same type of class. It's just to hold the information from the database. So instead of pulling from the database every time we need a question, we can just make an array of questions whenever the game is loaded first, and then random generate one from that whenever a button's clicked, instead of having to connect every time. So this holds the ID as an int, and then the question text, the correct answer of the question, and then the text for choices A, B, C, and D. So with this being multiple choice, that's how we have this set up. And then constructor sets all of these, and then setters and getters, which we test here. So if we go ahead and run these tests, go ahead and run these. Each of these pass, everything is working as intended. And that is what we've worked on for this sprint. Next sprint, we plan on adding a lot more functionality with our menu, having our grid actually work based on what's in the database, and a whole lot more. But for sprint 1, this is everything that we've done. So thank you for watching.